September ends.
Hey everybody, it's Nikki. Thanks for joining me today. I wanted to show you a little bit about my Castle Serenity Pellet Stove. I've noticed when I bought this pellet stove a few years back that the manual was a little confusing. So I've got this separated by chapters, so you're welcome to like jump around in the video. I'm going to be talking about why I use the manual setting on this Castle Serenity stove, and then I'm going to show you some of the other settings. I'm also going to talk to you about the pellets and the hopper, and then I'm going to show you how I clean it. Thanks. I don't need you to like, I don't need you to subscribe, I don't even need you to send me money. What I need you to do is rewind the video and let it run through its entirety. You don't even have to have the sound on, you don't even have to watch. Thanks. Okay, here's my Castle Serenity Pellet Stove and how I've got it hooked up. It's on its little platform, which it needs to do. It only needs actually a couple inches of clearance back here. Your installation kit will tell you all about that. The guys who are installing it really know their stuff. But I've got mine going directly through the ceiling where the old wood stove pipe was and the old pellet stove was. How I use my controls, which is what I'm about to show you, is different most likely than you, because my setup is probably going to be different than you. You may have a different pedestal, might be different size of room too. I'm in a very small house. I'm in about 1,000 square feet. And this living room is where my pellet stove really heats the house. So I don't have much square footage for it to heat. So it really does a tremendously good job very quickly. And then I use the ceiling fans to push the air into other parts of the house. And then I supplement with these wall units you see on the right-hand side there. So I can tell that the pellet stove is plugged in and on because this button is on. Now I want to actually ignite the stove. So I have to first wake it up. The green light is on, which means it's plugged in. I'm going to kind of wake it up. That makes the screen turn up. If I hit it again, it's going to ignite. And the word ignite comes on, I get a little burner, and that little blade means that it's going to start dropping pellets. So because it's fairly warm out right now, my stove should ignite within a couple minutes and be really going to town within about 15 minutes. So a couple other things to know on this screen: V equals a vacuum. It needs a negative vacuum. So the lid needs to be shut, the door needs to be shut. So we got that. It's creating that vacuum so that it can burn the pellets. And then L means that the lid is closed. That's what you want to. You can open the lid for a few minutes to pour in your pellets, but you can't leave it open and you can't fill it too high so that the lid doesn't close. It still needs that. It still needs to have that vacuum. So let's come back in a few minutes and see how it goes. Okay, it's been just about, I don't know, 5 minutes at the most right now. Since I turned it on, we can see that there's a flame going and pellets are dropping in. There's lots of different noises that happen with turning this on. There's the beep of the button, obviously, and then the noise of the tinkling pieces of pellets coming in. The blower is starting to come on. Okay, I also want to tell you how hot this thing gets. The glass doesn't get all that hot. This area doesn't get all that hot. This is where the heat will blow out from, so that's the warmest. But generally, it's not too hot to touch. The sides do get pretty hot, so if you have a baby or a toddler, you definitely want to protect this area. Okay, say you're not heating the room fast enough, and you're on that low, you want it to be hotter, or maybe it's really cold out when you came in, and you want it to, anyway, you want the stove on hotter. You just press these up and down arrows. And you can hear it revving up. Woo! Another setting that I thought was really cool is this timer setting right here with the, what looks like a little clock. If you hit it, you get increments of 1 hour. You can hit it until wherever you want to be. And since the stove is on, this timer is telling it to turn off. So it says, you know, I've essentially told it turn off in 3 hours. If the unit was off and I hit the timer, I would be essentially telling it to turn on in 3 hours. So whatever it's not, you know, whatever it's not doing, it'll take that next step. So this is awesome for if you want to keep it on manual, you don't want to keep it on temp or weekly, and you want to go to work, but you want it on, you want it nice and cozy and warm when you come home. If you're going to be gone for 8 hours, you know, set the timer to 7 hours, and then it'll kick on when you get in. You're going to be nice and warm. The other way to do it also is if you want it to turn off. Like when we go to bed at night, I want it to be warm until, you know, we're heading into bed. And then within an hour later, I want it to start cooling off. And so I'll set the timer to automatically turn it off. Okay, now I'm gonna turn off the machine. So what you'll see when it turns off is fire off. The blower will keep blowing for a while, so it's gonna take several minutes for these different sounds. Remember, the sounds came online as it was warming up, so there's different sounds that are going to come offline as it cools down. So we'll hear the blower for a while, and then after that we'll kind of hear just a rumble, and then it will go completely silent. But that green light will stay on, which means it's plugged in. Now that the burner is off, I'm going to show you some of the cycles on the user interface. So you'll see that the screen is kind of dark. All you have to do is kind of wake it up. And then if I wanted to turn the unit on, I would hit it again. But for right now, what I want to do is look at the different settings, and you can't change from manual setting or to any other setting if it's burning and on. So what you want to do is hit this button here. I know it looks like a recycling air button, but it's not. That will cycle through the different settings. So right now we're on manual, which I've talked about how to use. If I hit the button again, it's going to go to temp. So on temp, what I can do is you can set it for a certain temperature, and it will get to that temperature really quickly. So you see, if I was going to turn on the stove right now and ignite it, it would go up to, I usually keep it on 1 manual, but it would start off going pretty hot and heavy so that it would reach that 72 degrees from 68. And but the problem with it is that because my place is pretty small, this stove heats up pretty quickly, and within a couple hours I'm to like 84 something degrees right around this area. So that's why I always keep it on minimal. When I put it on temp, it wants to raise it up really quickly, but then the lowest it can go is always going to be on is that manual level 1. So it'll spike and then go down to that manual level 1. Instead, I just turn it on 1, let it heat up a little slower. So for me, this doesn't work, but your configuration, it might be, you might. So temp doesn't work for me personally, but you can easily set it. And then once you're here, it's a matter of just hitting the buttons, trying to get the temperature to the setting that you want. Okay, so let's say we love temp, and we love it so much that we want to put it on regularly, weekly. So if I lived in a really cold place, I'd probably want to set it weekly, where it comes on early in the morning, stays on through the morning, turns off in the afternoon, comes back on in the evening, and kind of a regular schedule. But because of where I am in Arizona, every day is quite different because our seasons are so mild. So, but same kind of idea applies. If I wanted to set it to weekly, then I would start hitting buttons here about how to program this time when I wanted it to turn off and on. The hopper says it holds 40 pounds of pellets, and a bag is 40 pounds. Sounds like a match made in heaven, but it's not. For the stove to work, there needs to be at least some pellets in the bottom of this hopper to get to the burn pot, or you get that beep and the error message. The ignition will turn off, no more pellets will fall in. So then you'd need to wait until the unit cools about 30 minutes, 15-30 minutes. So that's the same error message as if the stove overheats. It says the same thing, which is a great safety feature. So the stove itself will shut off if it doesn't have enough pellets in there. Since you can see that right now this is filled to the brim, and there were already 1 or 2 pounds worth of pellets in there, and so the remainder of the bag I put in this little scuttle so that it's ready to fill up the pot once it gets low again. Generally speaking, 1 bag of 40 pounds of pellets will last about 24 hours if your stove is on continuously. Mine is always on low, and then I have those 2 long breaks in the middle of the night, and typically throughout the mid part of the day. So my bag seems to last about 36 hours. Okay, I got the dreaded beep again, and this is the error message. That it seems like this is the only error message it ever is able to come up with. Check to see if the hopper is out of pellets, check the burn pot. So we're out of pellets. Now I could, scoop these down a little bit more, and then it'll have the ability to get, into the hopper, which is, right down in there. Since I have my scuttle available, I'm gonna go ahead and just pour them in. I'm gonna make sure to not have any of the dust and chips and stuff here. To get this error message to go away, I'm gonna have to turn it off. Let it know that, I understood. And automatically, of course, it's at fire off. And so what I'm gonna do next is tell it to turn back on. And it's gonna take 30 minutes to reignite. No big deal. Clean the machine, you do need to wait until the stove is totally cool. It takes at least 15 minutes to turn off, and then I would wait a couple hours until you're ready to clean it. So it gets, you gonna help me? Thank you. Here's that burn box, and it gets a little crusty in the bottom. This has been 2 days since I cleaned it. It's not horrible. Just kind of tap those and get rid of them. You want as much airflow as possible. That's the line of the stove. Just tapping. And that's ready to go. The instructions do say to do that every day. If you do have your stove on, so you can't do all this stuff. You could use just here's that burn box, and it gets a little crusty in the bottom. This has been 2 days since I cleaned it. It's not horrible. Just kind of tap those and get rid of them. You want as much airflow as possible. That's the line of the stove. Just tapping. And that's ready to go. The instructions do say to do that every day. If you do have your stove on, so you can't do all this stuff. You could use just so the next thing we're going to do is vacuum it out. So let's take a look over here. What I've got is the Snow Joe, and the cool thing is about it, this hose is lead lined, so it's not going to, and the canister is metal, so it's not going to burn through, but you still want to make sure your stove is off and totally cool before you start this process. And then I also leave the ashes in the vacuum for at least a day before I toss them out. And you can toss them out in the garbage. I used to put mine in the composter. They do great in the soil as well as a soil amendment. Okay, so we're going to vacuum. We're going to start up here on the upper parts. There's also a little flange that channels the ash down into the burn pot, which you're going to see in a minute. So I'm going to get all of that first. So the last time we cleaned this was on Sunday. It was 2 days ago, and it just had an inch of ash, and it really wasn't that bad. And then to clean the window, I just take a dry cloth and wipe it up. All right, I'm gonna put everything back together.